Did you know that having one cesarean doesn't automatically mean that you'll need another? Have you had a cesarean and now you're wondering what a VBAC is? Today, I'm going to explain exactly what a VBAC is, why women choose one, and some of the things you may want to know if you're considering one. So, what does VBAC stand for? VBAC stands for Vaginal Birth After Caesarean Section. That's all it is. So, you're just having a vaginal birth after a cesarean section. Either one, two, or three cesarean sections. We'll get into that a little bit later, but it's essentially that's exactly what it means. So, why do women choose to have a VBAC? I'm going to share a little bit about why I chose to have a VBAC and why I wanted to have one, because it's probably not something that is like you can explain with facts and evidence. Basically, for me, it was a feeling. I always wanted to have a vaginal birth. And I never expected to end up in a C-section to begin with, let alone finding out that I didn't need that C-section or my baby didn't need that C-section. But as a first-time mum, I went through the route of an induction that failed, and then I ended up in a C-section. To be honest, I never thought I would end up there, and it was quite shocking to end up there. None of the women in my lineage had ever had C-sections for a reason, actually needing to have a C-section. And so I thought I would just go on and have a vaginal birth. So when I ended up having a C-section, I felt that I didn't give birth to my baby. And I'm not saying that women who have C-sections are not giving birth to their baby. I'm just simply sharing my lived experience. I had this deep feeling inside myself that I had failed and that I had failed my baby. And I obviously don't feel that way anymore, but there was something missing in my body, my spirit, my soul, this deep desire to birth. It was a biological, intuitive feeling that, if we think about it, we're biologically wired to do these things. So there must be something in our DNA through my ancestral path, but it was in my heart and in my spirit that I just didn't feel whole for not having a vaginal birth. And it was gut-wrenching, to be honest with you. Absolutely soul destroying. And that's really hard to talk to healthcare providers about that experience because they just don't understand a lot of the time what that means, how that feels, or the importance of that. It is a spiritual experience for many women, and we don't even have to explain the reason why we want to have this vaginal birth. At the end of the day, we are designed to birth vaginally. It is in our innate wisdom and knowing. C-section births are absolutely life-saving, and I'm so grateful that we have them and that they're really a lot safer now than when they first were introduced. They were introduced to save women and babies' lives, and I'm so grateful for that. But the World Health Organization says that anything over 10 to 15% of babies being born is not actually beneficial for babies or mothers. We have to really understand that having interventions that are life-saving and should be used when they are life-saving is one thing, and overusing interventions can actually be harmful. And it could be harmful on so many different levels, spiritually, intellectually, long-term, short-term, on so many different levels. Now, I won't go into that too much. I'll do a different video for that. That was my personal lived experience, and not every woman feels the same as me. I acknowledge that not everyone feels the same as me or has the same experience. In fact, I remember sharing this with an obstetrician when I was having my planned VBAC in the hospital. And she actually turned around and said to me, "So what are you saying? I chose to have C-sections. Are you saying that I didn't give birth?" And I was saying to her, "No, I'm telling you my lived experience. It is a very different thing if you choose to have a cesarean birth or whether you end up having one and it's not your choice and it's not your preference. They're two different experiences." And so for me, in that experience, it was a very challenging experience to try to talk to a healthcare provider who just didn't get it, who just didn't understand, who just didn't have the same desires, wants, or spiritual experience as me. So here are some reasons why other women have VBACs. They're wanting to experience a vaginal birth. They can have a faster recovery, avoiding another surgery, feeling more involved in the birth process, wanting more children. This was a huge one for me. I wanted to have 4 children. And so I knew the risks of having further C-sections each time put my risks up. So having 1 C-section starts at this risk level. And by the time you have 4, you're at a much higher risk level. So I knew that I wanted to have 4 children, and pretty much at no point did anyone ever ask me how many children I wanted to have, because I think during the journey, that's a really important question for healthcare providers to be asking women who want to have a VBAC and supporting women to have VBACs. Previous birth trauma, if a C-section birth was traumatic, I mean, for me, it was very scary laying there, just all the drugs. I don't want the experience of all the drugs and shaking and feeling sick and vomiting, and just not being part of the process is really challenging as well. I wanted to feel part of the process. I wanted to feel the contractions. I wanted my body to go into spontaneous labor. I wanted to breathe through the contractions, just like my mother did, and her mother, and her mother, and her mother. I wanted to have that full experience. And I had so much gratitude for potentially having that experience, because I never had it with my first baby. And so something that a lot of women think, oh, birth is such a painful thing. For me, I was so grateful to have the opportunity and experience, which, I am grateful for that experience. But at the same time, it's ironic that I'm grateful for having something that really should have happened to begin with. All women should be given the opportunity to give birth vaginally and labor if that's what they want to do as well. Feeling called to a physiological birth. So again, for me, I was definitely feeling called to this physiological experience, this whole body experience. Is VBAC safe? This is one of the things that a lot of women worry about, because often they're told by society or even their healthcare providers that all of the risks of VBAC, right? And then they talk about none of the risks of a C-section. It is so important to keep a balanced view when we're looking at our birth options. So, is VBAC safe? Safety is never one size fits all. Every woman, every pregnancy and every birth is unique. I can't tell you that anything is safe. Risk is subjective. So we all have risks. Whenever you leave your house, there's a risk that you're going to get into a car accident when you get in your car. But if you had somebody at the door saying, hey, there's this risk of you getting into this car accident, you would be petrified out of your mind every time you got into your car if someone was telling you the statistics of this thing happening. And so telling someone and understanding the evidence is one thing, right? But when somebody's constantly telling you, this is a risk, this is a risk, this is a risk, this is a risk, you will be covered in so much worry and concern all of the time, and life is full of risks. Really, what we need to do is have some informed decision making to understand what the risks are, what the benefits are for both birth options. And, the benefits of having a vaginal birth are, if you're going to have multiple children, you lower your risks at anything happening long term. Your risks actually lower for uterine rupture every VBAC that you go on to have. Also, when you're not having C-sections, you don't have the extra risk that every C-section you have on top of each C-section comes with as well. The other benefits are that for many women, it's easier to get up and walk around after a vaginal birth. Now, not all women. Some women do get extreme tearing, but if you are one of the women who do not get tearing, I gave birth to a 10-pound baby at home eventually with my third baby, and I had not even a single graze. And I believe there's ways to reduce the risk of tearing, and I will be doing a video on that sometime soon as well. So if you're interested in that, leave something in the comments below so I can get to that video as soon as I can too. For many women, I felt very whole after my vaginal birth. I didn't have that cut across my belly anymore. I didn't have to worry about laughing and popping stitches open or holding my belly or being like rolling out of bed and all of those things that you have to worry about with a C-section. I didn't have to take any drugs or anything for pain relief afterwards. And so for me, that was a huge benefit. I had 2 little children I was running around for afterwards, and I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. At the end of the day, C-section is major surgery, and I could get in my car afterwards and go for a drive. You can't do that for 6 weeks after having a C-section either. So there's a lot of disadvantages to having major surgery, and there's a lot of advantages to having a vaginal birth. So can everyone have a VBAC? I think that majority of women can have a VBAC. I think there would be some really very small amount of women who couldn't have a VBAC, and that might be women who have got pelvic problems. Say you've had a car accident and you've broken your pelvis, and you've had to have some reconstructive surgery or something like that. That's probably not a great idea to go and have a vaginal birth with. Again, seek out medical support and information in regards to that sort of thing. And women who have had a previous rupture during a VBAC attempt, some women go on to have another VBAC. They will go on to have a VBAC after a rupture. Again, you have to look at the risks and weigh up those risks for yourself and how you feel about that. And that's pretty much the only kind of group that I can think of, unless someone's really poorly and needs to have a C-section. There are some times where obviously a C-section is more important to consider, and that's when you need to talk to your healthcare provider and make sure you're making the right choices for you. So we talk about what a VBAC, a HBAC, and a VBAC after 2 cesareans are. So that's VBAC, VBAC, a HBAC, HBAC, a VBA2C. So let's start with a VBAC. We already know what that is because we've been discussing that throughout this video. So a VBAC is a vaginal birth after cesarean section. A HBAC is a home birth after cesarean. So that's when you're still having a vaginal birth, but we just replace the V with a H because it's going to be a home birth. So obviously when you have a home birth, you're giving birth out of your vagina and you're giving birth without pain relief as well. A VBAC after 2 cesareans, VBA2C, is when you're having a vaginal birth after 2 cesareans. So I had a vaginal birth after 2 cesareans, but technically I had a HBAC after 2 cesareans, so a HBA2C. So there's a lot of little code names in the VBAC community. And when you've been in our little community for a while, it's actually quite a large community worldwide, you'll start to learn all the little codes and things like that. But until you learn those if you're in any of the Facebook groups, if you're in my Facebook group, you can just say, vaginal birth after 2 cesareans, that sort of thing, until you get the lingo right. But that gives you a little bit of extra information. You deserve to know your options and understand all your options. It upsets me a lot when women don't know what their options are and their healthcare providers don't provide that to them. The amount of women I've met at the hairdresser who are hearing me talk to the hairdresser and tell them what I do and tell them about my birth experience or whatever it is that I'm talking about, but mostly my work. I'll have a woman who's in there getting her hair done. It might even be one other woman in the whole salon, and she pipes up and says, "Oh, I was told I couldn't have a VBAC. I was told I had to have a C-section." There are so many women that I run into who are 10 years, 20 years, 30 years past their journey who have been told that they didn't have options. And it just makes me so upset for those women that they didn't have the knowledge, the information, the support, and healthcare providers who are giving them correct information. Because women do have choices. You have choices. You have rights when it comes to birth. And it's important to understand what those rights are. It's important to have a team around you who supports you, believes in you and trusts in you. And it's important to trust and believe in yourself. So to get you started on your journey, if you're planning a VBAC and want support, I've got a VBAC starter kit and it's totally free. Jump into the description and you can get yours now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.